Hello there, and welcome to IQT's The Quantum Dragon podcast. My name is Brian Siegelwax, and this podcast is completely out of control. Fortunately, my guest this episode is Greg Carman, General Manager for North America for Qblox. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Okay, you've teamed up with QuantWare and Q-CTRL to offer the quantum utility block, but that's surprisingly the extent I know about it. It sounds like a building
hmm
block for a modular computer, but what is it really? What can you tell us about it?
Well, Brian, what we're part of is in the quantum ecosystem. There's a general perspective that you're either a closed architecture system or an open architecture system, and people in the industry use those terms almost flippantly because when you're a closed architecture system, you're not really fully closed. It just means from a fabrication perspective, you are usually sourcing all the parts yourself. You're assembling, you're doing all the QA, you're doing the end of line testing, you're doing all the firmware, all the gateware yourself. In an open architecture system, which is what Qblox embraces, you are bringing together coalitions of partners across the stack, from the QPU vendors to the cryostat vendors to the control plane where Qblox sits, to the cabling and wiring, to calibration and compiling software, to orchestration software, and ultimately to all the application software that once we get to fault-tolerant quantum computing that we'll ultimately have available in the ecosystem. So by embracing this open architecture philosophy, which we believe will be the winning philosophy in the quantum ecosystem across modality, we think that improves the ultimate underlying performance at each level of the architecture. From a control plane perspective, that allows us to be partners to all QPU vendors of all modalities, partners to all cryostat vendors of all approaches, partners to all cabling systems, and partners to all software vendors. But what we've also found is that there are some folks in the ecosystem that are also embracing this. Folks like QuantWare and Q-CTRL are embracing this open architecture approach, and receiving very positive feedback from the community. The community being the underlying purchasers, whether it's academia or national labs, or the underlying system integrators delivering to data centers. And so with QuantWare, Qblox, and Q-CTRL are going to market pre-built integrations, pre-built certifications, so that we can reduce the risk, reduce the overall cost of ownership, reduce the time to value, reduce the lead time for delivery of the supply chain, to provide a near turnkey experience for the purchasers at academia, national labs, and elsewhere for quantum systems, ranging from smaller systems in the less than 10 qubit environments to the 10 to 50 qubit environments to the 50 to 150 qubit environments. And the response we've received so far has been tremendous. With all of those segments, again, academia and national labs as two great examples of really embracing it. And ultimately where this is headed is that the industry is moving from a research-focused industry. Will this work? Will quantum work? Will a particular modality work? Will we get to a meaningful number of qubits to actually start doing QEC type use case experiments. And we're migrating from that research only, will this work, to we need to be ready because it's going to work and we're going to engineer this. So we're finding a lot of interest going from the top tier R1 academic labs to the R2, R3, and community colleges who are trying to beef up the bench of available talent that has some skill and training in the quantum world. So we're starting to see this workforce development movement take on, and having these turnkey open environment labs are ideal teaching environments for undergraduates and master's programs alike. So when you ask about Cube, this is just the beginning of what we see to be dozens of coalitions of partnerships across open architecture, suppliers, delivering turnkey experiences with low risk and high value with reliable, shorter lead times for delivery of product. So that's what Cube is about. It's about improving the opportunity for turnkey lab experience, but more importantly, providing solutions for workforce development at R2, R3 at community colleges to teach the next generation of college graduates basic to advanced levels of quantum computing, preparing that workforce that will grow because we're migrating from research to an engineered marketplace. So hope that gets to your question, but that's what Cube is all about.
Yeah, I should have pronounced it Cube, and I feel a little silly for not
Ah,
seeing that. Now that once you said it, I looked at the
it's a
spelling, the acronym QUB, and I'm like, yeah, I should
it's a
have
play on
pronounced it
words,
then.
man.
And speaking of architectures, you've built a Qblox Qubit Lab, and I'm curious, what's its architecture and what is it being used for?
So we are intentionally making available test beds or field labs through partnerships around the world. In Delft, the Netherlands, we have both a superconducting and a spin lab at the House of Quantum. These are in partnerships with our cryostat partners like Maybell and Blue Force, and our QPU partners like QuantWare and software partners like Qcontrol and Qblox. And we're also then expanding that into other parts. In North America, we're opening up a new lab. No surprise, it starts with a Q. It's called QPAC. It's with our partners at Elevate Quantum, Maybell, QuantWare, and Qcontrol. And that is based in Arvada, Colorado at the Elevate Quantum campus. And that's in partnership with uh, Colorado University Boulder, as well as Colorado School of Mines. We're very excited about that because it'll provide an environment for startups, academics, and other institutions like the government to be able to train more people and to be able to take advantage of a full system without having to lay down the capital expense of buying a full system. And a lot of startups out there that need access to quantum computing, but before they actually sink the dollars into that capital expense for a full system, can take advantage of it. And in addition to that, you'll see more labs open up across North America and in other parts of the world where, in partnership with those in our ecosystem, embracing this open architecture approach, you'll see these field labs develop where we'll be able to use them for business development. We'll be able to use them for workforce development. And most importantly, we'll be able to use these for the development of startup innovation ecosystems in these various regional locations. So we're really excited about what we're doing in Colorado with QPAC and our partners at Elevate Quantum, QuantWare, and Qcontrol. We're equally excited about what we're doing at House of Quantum in the Netherlands at TU Delft, both in the superconducting spin side, and we're anxiously waiting to share the news about other test beds that will be opening up throughout 2026 and 27.
Hey, speaking of startup innovation, I need more transitions in my repertoire. But to my knowledge, Oxford Quantum Circuits, aka OQC, is the only company that has deployed a superconducting quantum computer with logical qubits. Can you take any credit for that?
Well, we can take some, but it takes a village, and we are certainly honored and privileged to be a part of OQC's efforts. And in particular, we're very excited about what we're doing in partnership with OQC and Riverlane to deliver QEC, quantum error correction, in a production environment, serving data center for an end customer. And we understand that we are part of being part of that system. Oxford, OQC, Riverlane, and Qblox are the first in production with QEC. And we're building this on Riverlane's QECI protocols. We also believe that we're the first in market to have a native integration with that. So Qblox control stacks are powering some of the biggest breakthroughs towards the journey of fault-tolerant quantum computing. As we all know, in order to get to fault-tolerant quantum computing, you need scale, you need outstanding qubit control, and you need real-time decoding. We play a part in two of those. Well, we can't claim to play a part in scale. We certainly can with outstanding qubit control and real-time decoding. And our control electronics provide the horsepower in partnership with Riverlane and OQC to deliver that real-time decoding in this data center environment. So we're very excited about what we're doing in that environment. We feel honored and privileged to be part of that partnership. And you notice there's another coalition. This open architecture approach delivers superior results with reliable time to market, with reliable lead times for the delivery of hardware and computing and value, and doing that with best-in-class capabilities. So appreciate the question. And again, we're excited about what lays ahead for that partnership and other opportunities to deliver QEC at scale.
Okay, looking beyond the technological breakthroughs, your list of partners includes IQM, and yet you don't call yourself the market leader. Everybody calls themselves the leader of something, but you don't. But I've counted, and IQM has outsold everyone, including IBM, unless we count desktop NMR systems, which I'm not at the moment. So it seems you're likely the leader. So are you?
You know, we like to consider ourselves the voice of reason in an unreasonable market with unreasonable expectations and a lot of chicanery about claims. So I'd like to keep, our market position close to the chest. I could say that we are very happy with our current position, but not satisfied. And we're very excited about the products we've launched, the products we're launching, the partnerships we're launching, and what that means for growth and market share in the future. One of the recent partnerships that we announced was a partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy and Fermilab with their Qblox open source control electronics. One might ask, why would we do that? Well, an open source project is a great platform for workforce development. There's some studies that show 35% of the quantum jobs of the future will be trade jobs, not PhDs, not masters, not even undergraduate degrees, but trade school jobs. And giving students and faculty a chance to work with an open source project, crack open the metal, crack open the FPGA, see how they're assembled, get down to the firmware level, start to work with the software, and start to be able to develop this in partnership with our proprietary products and our industry scale products, we think offer a really outstanding platform for workforce development. But more importantly, it turns out the Qboxes might be the most widely deployed control electronics platform in more labs, in more academic labs, and in more national labs than any other control system. Now, not the most volume, but in the most labs. That's a very important, subtle point. So, in partnership with the Department of Energy and Fermilab with KIC, and with our own proprietary industrial grade scaling capabilities, we are very excited about the future. Again, we're happy with our current market position, but certainly not satisfied by any means. But we like what we're delivering to market. We like how what we're delivering to market to scale for the best qubit control in the marketplace. And we do think we have the specs to support we are delivering the best qubit control in the marketplace and the only proven platform to deliver real-time decoding in production. And those are two of the three requirements for fault-tolerant quantum computing. So while I won't lay claim to are we the leading of it, but again, it's because we do fully embrace that we want to be the voice of reason in this unreasonable marketplace. But I do appreciate the question.
And I really need more transitions in my repertoire, and I need more transitions, more bigger repertoire for the need for more in my repertoire. But beyond the capabilities, we tend to look at, when we look at quantum computers, we look at the main sections typically, and not necessarily at their racks and racks of control equipment. How does your scalability compare to others in terms of physical footprint and power consumption?
Second to none. You asked me before if we're the leader in the market. I think from a performance spec standpoint, when it comes to energy consumption, I'm unaware of any other control electronics on the market that is as energy efficient per channel, per qubit as ours. In terms of footprint scale, the actual space taking, with the release of our latest generation product called QRC, Quantum Readout and Control, in combination with the rest of our suite of our products, we scale each one of these towers to nearly 800 channels. And being able to do that not just up a tower, but linearly down a tower, our ability to deliver 150 qubits on a tower and be able to scale that linearly is available today. And you can take the measurements of those towers yourself and determine how far they go to the left or the right. And it's a manageable approach. But what we're seeing in the future and what we'll be delivering in 27, 28, 29 is greater density. So more channels per tower, less consumption per qubit, less cooling required per tower. And lastly, the overall cost per qubit going down tremendously. So we're seeing the rise of physical and logical qubits inversely related to the improvements in density and space and energy consumption and cooling. So while there's not yet a Moore's law for quantum computing like there is in the classical computing space, I'm sure that some brilliant researcher out there at some academic institution will define the calculus to simplify this law of inversely related scale to power consumption in space. And we'll be calling it someone's law, like the Siegel-Wax law in the future. And we'll all be living and breathing by it on probably an 18 to 24 month scale. But that's where we're headed today. And today, delivering 1,000 qubits in a scaling up a tower and linearly out a tower. In the future, scaling to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of qubits going up and out. And the only way to get there is through density improvements in power consumption, improvements in cooling requirements, and overall improvements in cost per qubit. But again, as I mentioned before, we're migrating from a research-based industry to an engineered industry. And this is now really coming into its own, that we will start to see engineering breakthroughs to deliver those capabilities to the market.
Wax law. I need to do something with that phrase. I don't know what it's going to be, but I am stealing that. Thank you in advance. For my last question, why webinars? I, of course, watched the one with Professor Shore because who's going to miss that? But what's
Yeah.
the strategy behind them?
So it's there's an opportunity in the quantum marketplace to speak everyday language. And let me just give you a broad perspective. Over the last 10 years, billions of taxpayer dollars around the world have been invested in quantum research. Billions. There's a new development afoot to put more billions or approaching trillion plus in investment over the next 10 years. More taxpayer dollars. Finally, some of those dollars are being earmarked for workforce development to prepare the next generation of trade school and college graduates to be quantum literate and quantum aware. Because the taxpayer is going to come calling, say, where are the jobs? What's in it for me? Where did all this money go to? Now, you ask about the webinars. Why did I lead with that? Because if we don't start talking past the small communities of PhDs, the market is not going to be ready from a jobs perspective. The market is not going to be ready from why did we spend this money perspective. So what we're trying to do is bring these breakthroughs that are scientific and soon to be engineering and eventually be industrial breakthroughs to the everyday person, to bring this into conversation, to share this broadly, to engage in a public debate and a public conversation about what's in it for the common good. And we think that there's an opportunity there. This is just the beginning of our approach to embrace and engage with the community, engage with R2, R3, and community colleges, engage with the policymakers, both elected and appointed politicians who are setting the policy and earmarking public dollars for this, to engage with the K through 12 to get people to be literate and ready, these young people, because that is the opportunity in front of us. And let me just give you an example. In classical computing, some of the greatest contributors to the industry were young children who were given exposure in the 1970s as the classical industry was migrating from a research space to an engineered space. Mainframes were just starting to get out there in the market. And for some places like the University of Washington, for gifted students, high school students, and young middle school students, they would make available computing time. And these young students were learning how to code, how to interact with a mainframe computer. People like Bill Gates became a prodigy because he had the opportunity in the early and mid 70s to engage with the University of Washington supercomputer and mainframe. Students, philosophy students like Steve Jobs, I think he was a philosophy major, was able to get access to his university's mainframe and start to learn the powers of computing. And then with his friend Woz, they started realizing what they could do. Maybe we could create a personal computer. The future innovators in quantum are children today. They're undergraduate students, and they're probably not even thinking about quantum. Using this webinar series is just one of a multifaceted approach to engage with the community in a real dialogue using everyday language, not quantum jargon. You know, I believe it's McKinsey who has a study out there that within the next 5 years, there will be a shift from mostly PhDs being employed in quantum to less than 12% of the jobs in quantum being occupied by PhDs. Where are those students going to come from? And how are we going to bring to them the awareness that there's a topic that is not just science fiction, that might be interesting to them? They might be a marketing major. They might be a finance major. They might be a philosophy major. They might just be creative as heck. And then they have the idea. By engaging the webinar series, by making these test beds available all around the world to foster innovation with startup ecosystems, we're part of that conversation. And we're proud to be part of it. And again, this is just one of many ways that we're doing that. And we're excited about some of the guests that we're going to have on the webinar, the Quantum Builders webinar at the APS March meetings. We're excited about the guests we're going to be having throughout the year. And we hope that it's not only entertaining and educational, but that it's something that's interesting that people want to keep coming back for. And I hope that gets to your question, Brian.
And with that, the floor is yours to say anything else you'd like to say.
Well, at Qblox, we are a quantum controls company purposely built to facilitate the scaling that the QPU vendors are introducing with the best qubit control and an open decoding platform to serve as the basis for the majority of real-time decoding quantum error correction needs in the marketplace. We're very excited about that. You know, our ambitions are global, but our true DNA of the company rests in advancing the scientific and engineering aims of our customers and partners. It just so happens that we offer control electronics to do that. And I've mentioned the word partnership, I've mentioned the word collaboration, I mentioned the word coalition a lot in this webinar, or in this interview. And the reason for that is where we sit in the stack. And with that real core focus of we are doing this to enable the achievement of scientific and engineering aims of our customers and partners, then it's critically important for us to be broadening our partnership ecosystem, to be able to deliver the roadmaps and partnerships with those partners, to deliver the breakthroughs in scale, in qubit control, and in real-time decoding. It's critical that we deliver this down the academic community, going beyond R1 research labs and getting into R2, R3, and community college teaching environments for on-campus teaching labs. It's critical that we advance these interests in deep R&D capabilities with startups, scale-ups, and large enterprises alike, because the whole industry is migrating from research to engineered solutions. And we think that we are well positioned to be at the heart of the majority of quantum systems when we get to 1 million qubits of fault-tolerant quantum computing in the next decade. So I really appreciate your time. You know, I think it's important to know that beyond our partnerships, it's the team that matters. Who you bring on board that bus, how you work together, and I've been in B2B tech for 34 years. I've been in deep tech for nearly 20. I've been in quantum for the last 4. And I have never been a part of a company with a team that was so focused on the end goal, which is advancing the interest of others through the power of quantum controls and quantum computing. I've never been a part of a team that had such a rich culture of collaboration and thoughtfulness. And that will separate us from everybody else in the marketplace, set a standard for the marketplace, and we hope others will follow suit with that. Because if we're advancing the interest of each other to deliver these fault-tolerant quantum computing systems, then we think the cream will rise to the crop. The best products will be delivered in most of the systems. The best advances will be delivered as a result of the best teams. And we just want to be a part of that. And we think that our products will give us the ticket to be a part of that. We think that our teams will help us stay with that. And our partnerships will keep us in the conversation for a long time. I really appreciate you having me here, Brian. I hope that this information is valuable and insightful for your audience. And I look forward to continuing the conversation over time.
Sounds good to me. And thank you very much. And thank you for being my guest on IQT's The Quantum Dragon podcast. And thank you to everyone who's still listening. As always, I invite you to stick around for the outro music. It's called Dungeons and Dragons. Enjoy.